Learn again? JustProfessor here. Someone bets their entire savings on red at the roulette table. They win and double their money. You think they made a smart decision. Another person carefully invests in a solid company. The stock drops and they lose money. You think they made a stupid decision. You're judging both decisions completely wrong. You think you can tell if a decision was good or bad by looking at what happened afterward. If something worked out, it was a good decision. If it failed, it was a bad decision. But that's not how decision quality actually works. There's a huge difference between a good decision and a good outcome. A terrible decision can have a great outcome because of luck. A smart decision can have a terrible outcome because of bad luck. When you judge decisions only by their results, you're falling into outcome bias is when you judge the quality of a decision based on its result rather than based on the information and reasoning available when the decision was made. If something turns out well, you think it was a smart choice. If something turns out badly, you think it was a dumb choice. You're looking backward from the outcome and using that outcome to evaluate whether the decision made sense. The problem is outcomes include massive amounts of luck and factors nobody could predict. A decision can be brilliant with the information available at the time and still produce a bad outcome because something unexpected happened. A decision can be idiotic with the information available and still produce a good outcome because the person got lucky. The outcome doesn't tell you whether the decision-making process was sound. This matters because outcome bias prevents you from learning the right lessons. When a bad decision works out, outcome bias makes you think the decision was good. You repeat the same flawed thinking in the future. When a good decision fails, outcome bias makes you think the decision was bad. You abandon smart strategies that just got unlucky. You're reinforcing bad decision-making and discarding good decision-making based entirely on luck. Most people evaluate their own past choices using outcome bias. They look at what happened and work backward to judge whether they decided correctly. If a relationship ended badly, they think getting into it was wrong. If a job worked out well, they think taking it was right. But they're not actually evaluating the decision. They're evaluating luck and circumstances that came later. Let me show you how outcome bias corrupts your judgment in ways you don't see. In medicine, doctors face outcome bias constantly. A doctor makes a diagnosis based on symptoms and test results. They recommend treatment. The treatment fails, and the patient gets worse. Other doctors review the case and judge the original doctor harshly. But when you look at the information available at the time, the doctor made a reasonable choice. The bad outcome doesn't mean the decision was bad. It means medicine is uncertain, and outcomes depend on factors nobody can predict. The same thing happens when treatment succeeds. A doctor makes a questionable diagnosis based on incomplete information. They try a treatment that's not really indicated. The patient improves. Everyone thinks the doctor was brilliant. But the doctor actually made a poor decision that happened to work out. Outcome bias makes people praise the lucky bad decision and criticize the unlucky good decision. Business shows outcome bias destroying evaluations of leadership. A CEO makes a risky move that goes against expert advice. The company happens to benefit from an unpredictable market shift. The risky move pays off. Everyone calls the CEO a visionary genius, but the decision was actually reckless gambling that happened to win. Another CEO makes careful, well-researched decisions. An unexpected recession hits. The company struggles despite smart management. Everyone says the CEO failed. The board fires them. But the decisions were sound. The outcome was just unlucky. Investors fall into outcome bias traps constantly. Someone puts money into a random cryptocurrency based on hype with no research. The price explodes and they make huge returns. They think they're smart investors. They weren't. They got lucky on a terrible decision. Another person does deep research, diversifies properly, and invests in solid companies. A market crash happens. They lose money. They think they're bad at investing. They didn't. They made good decisions that hit bad luck. Sports fans use outcome bias to judge coaching decisions. A coach goes for it on 4th down instead of punting. The play fails. Fans say it was a stupid decision. But when you look at the statistics, going for it was the right call. It just didn't work this time. Another coach makes a conservative choice that goes against the numbers. It happens to work out. Fans praise the genius coaching, but it was actually a bad decision that got lucky. Parents judge their own parenting through outcome bias. Their child succeeds in school and gets into a good college. They think all their parenting decisions were correct. Their child struggles and drops out. They think all their parenting decisions were wrong. But most parenting outcomes depend on factors beyond the parent's control. A kid's personality, their friends, random opportunities, health issues, all affect outcomes more than specific parenting choices. Good parenting can produce struggle. Bad parenting can produce success. Hiring managers use outcome bias when evaluating past hires. They hired someone who turned out to be great. They think their judgment was excellent. They hired someone who turned out to be terrible. They think their judgment was poor. But they're not evaluating their judgment. They're evaluating outcomes that depend on factors they couldn't see in the interview. Maybe the great hire just happened to fit the team culture by luck. Maybe the bad hire had personal problems that came up after they were hired. Personal life decisions get judged by outcome bias too. You moved to a new city and it worked out great. You think moving was a smart choice. Your friend moved to a different city and had a terrible time. You think their move was a mistake. But both of you made decisions with incomplete information. Your good outcome and their bad outcome don't tell you whose decision process was better. It tells you who got luckier with unpredictable factors. So how do you avoid outcome bias when results are the easiest thing to see? How do you judge decisions by their quality instead of their luck? First, separate the decision from the outcome when evaluating what happened. Ask what information was available when the choice was made. Ask what a reasonable person would have decided with that information. Don't let the result change your evaluation of whether the thinking was sound. Second, judge decisions by process, not results. A good decision is one made using solid reasoning with the information available. A bad decision is one made using flawed reasoning or ignoring available information. The outcome is separate from whether the process was good. Third, understand that bad outcomes often come from good decisions and good outcomes often come from bad decisions. Luck plays a huge role in results. If you only learn from outcomes, you'll learn to repeat lucky bad decisions and avoid unlucky good decisions. Fourth, when something works out well, still analyze whether your decision process was actually smart or whether you just got lucky. Don't let success make you overconfident in flawed thinking. When something goes badly, analyze whether your decision process was actually flawed or whether you just got unlucky. Fifth, look at patterns across multiple decisions rather than judging individual outcomes. One bad result doesn't mean the decision was wrong. One good result doesn't mean the decision was right. But if a decision process consistently produces better results over many tries, it's probably a good process. Sixth, be careful about judging other people's decisions by outcomes. You don't know what information they had or what constraints they faced. The fact that something didn't work out doesn't mean they were stupid. The fact that something worked out doesn't mean they were smart. Outcome bias means you judge decisions by their results instead of by the quality of thinking that went into them. When something works out, you assume the decision was smart. When something fails, you assume the decision was dumb. But outcomes include massive amounts of luck and unpredictable factors. A brilliant decision can fail. A terrible decision can succeed. The result doesn't tell you if the choice was good. This bias destroys your ability to learn from experience. When bad decisions work out, you think they were good and repeat the same mistakes. When good decisions fail, you think they were bad and abandon smart strategies. You're using luck to teach yourself lessons about decision-making, and luck is a terrible teacher. The way to fight outcome bias is to evaluate decisions based on the process and information available when the choice was made, not based on what happened afterward. A good decision uses sound reasoning with available information. A bad decision ignores information or uses flawed logic. That quality exists independent of whether the outcome was lucky or unlucky. Understanding this separation between decision quality and outcome quality makes you better at choosing over time. You learn from good processes that happen to fail. You don't get fooled by bad processes that happen to succeed. You judge yourself and others fairly based on reasoning rather than luck. The next time something works out well for you, don't automatically assume you made a great decision. Ask whether your thinking was actually sound or whether you just got lucky. The next time something goes badly, don't automatically assume you screwed up. Ask whether your reasoning made sense with what you knew at the time. Subscribe to stop falling for these mental traps that ruin your choices.